Good evening. I'm Chuck Ambrose. In this episode of our show, we take Central Missouri tomorrow on the road as we visit Missouri's Katy Trail State Park. The Katy Trail is a ribbon of crushed limestone that stretches 240 miles. It cuts across central Missouri in an old rail bed from its beginning in Clinton to its end on the east side of the state near St. Charles. The trail is popular with cyclists, walkers, and for part of its distance, riders on a horseback. For the show, we'll take the trail and ride a popular section between Sedalia and Rocheport. Along the way, we'll visit with government leaders and a business owner and talk to them about their views of the trail. We'll hear firsthand the impact of Missouri's largest state park and what it has meant to the people and communities along its length. At our first stop in Sedalia, we meet up with Mayor Elaine Horn at mile marker 229. From there, our ride winds through woods and farmlands until we reach the town of Boonville, and our next destination 37 miles away at mile marker 192. There we'll spend time with Bill Bryan, Director of Missouri State Parks. At our final destination, 14 miles down the line at marker 179, we'll speak with Larry Horning, owner of the Trailside Cafe and Bike Shop in Rocheport. Well, this is our first stop on the Katy Trail, and I couldn't think of a better place to stop than here in Sedalia. And I'm with the mayor, and I'm certainly honored, Elaine, to be with you. Elaine Horn's been mayor here for 3 years. But could you put the Katy Trail kind of in context of what defines Sedalia as a community?
Oh, absolutely. Be happy to. And welcome to Sedalia, Chuck. We're glad to have you here. The Katy Trail is great in Sedalia. We have the uniqueness of having a state park that just isn't a square footage. It's a trail that goes through our community, which gives so many people access to get out for biking, hiking, and actually horseback riding. So it's really added a whole nother perspective to parking at state parks in our community.
And with state parks, you literally have several places that you can access the Katy Trail in Sedalia. One is right there on the State Fair grounds. And brings a lot of people, and I guess that's one of the more popular places to really start riding on the Katy Trail.
It is. There's a junction there right by the Missouri State Fairgrounds where a lot of folks go and park and get out on their bikes and take off headed toward Green Ridge, or maybe even go in the other direction to ride the trail. And we have a lot of families that they do the biking and walking. They bike and walk at the same time, and they each get a certain point and call and say, I'm headed back, and they turn around and meet back at their car. So it's a great thing for our community.
Of course, if you're riding the Katy Trail through Sedalia, it would be a big mistake, wouldn't it, not to get off your bicycle and access the Sedalia train station right here?
Oh, absolutely.
What an incredible facility.
Oh, yes, this facility, the Katy Depot, is just phenomenal. We've had it restored, and a lot of it's back to its normal glory. We're actually in what was used to be the women's room. You would not have been allowed in here back in the day, Chuck. You would have had to stay in the men's room.
Well, I'm glad things have changed.
Exactly, that makes it nice. But no, we're very proud of our heritage with the railroad and having this depot here as a part of the state park and being able to showcase it to people that come in so that they can understand the beginning and the history and what helps to make our community what it is today is really a great thing.
Because just by being here at the depot, Sedalia really wouldn't be here if it weren't for the railroad.
Absolutely.
And now we're almost at the 25th anniversary of the Katy Trail. I know we're moving towards 25 years, and this facility sat for almost 40, but now this becomes destination, doesn't it, for people?
It does. It's a great destination for people. They bike the trail. We even have folks that have flown in with their bikes to our airport, and we bring them out here and they bike back home on the Katy Trail. So it's a huge, huge draw for folks. And like you said, they love to stop along the way. There's an ice cream shop and different shopping experiences they can have while they're here.
Now, I'm aware of several services that are servicing bike riders and tourism, but could you speak a little bit about the economic impact of the Katy Trail on your community?
It has a good impact on our community. It's maybe not as significant as the Missouri State Fair, but it brings folks in here. They ride their bikes in, they spend the night, they stay at our historic hotel downtown, and they spend their dollars here, so it definitely has an economic impact on us. You know, if they have bike repairs that need to be done, we have shops that can do that, and it really does help showcase our community to folks too when they come in, and then they come back to the Missouri State Fair. If they come through biking, then they realize we have the State Fair here and they plan a trip and come back to do that. So it adds not just while they're here on that day, but it brings them back in the future for other events.
You know, one of the, encouragements is to get your caboose out onto the Katy Trail, which is a great encouragement.
It is.
We're really speaking to people in central Missouri, which, you know, sometimes when you're close to home, you don't take advantage of some of those things. But if you were making that day trip and wanted to be on the Katy Trail, what would be some of the top things in Sedalia you'd want to see?
I would want to see, since you're close on the trail to go into Cloverdale Park, they have an access to get to there. If you have a fishing rod, you could go fishing. We've got soccer fields. We even have disc golf there now so that they can participate in that. If they're in town, they can stop and have lunch downtown. We have several great eating places down there. They just recently opened up an ice cream shop at 16th and Grand, and I mean, it's literally on the trail. You don't even have to go 10 feet off the trail to get some ice cream and maybe an adult beverage across the corner. If it's later in the evening, you have the opportunity for that. So there's just a lot of great things like that you can access here.
Biking, walking, horses here in Sedalia. Tell me, do you take advantage of the trail, and what do you like to do?
I do. I go out and walk on the trail. I don't own a bike because I can't do that, but my husband, we go out together. He rides his bike and I walk, and when he gets as far as he wants to go, he calls me on his phone and I say, okay, and I turn around and we meet back at the car. So it's a great experience for us. We take our puppy dog with us, and so we all get that full experience, and I know there's a lot of folks here that do that.
You know, I think to be mayor of a community like Sedalia that's defined about relationships and access, we couldn't think of a better place, Elaine, to start our tour of the Katy Trail from right here in Sedalia. So thank you for your hospitality.
Oh, well, you're welcome. We appreciate having you here, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
It's not every day that you ride off the Katy Trail and are welcomed by the director of Missouri State Parks, Bill Bryan. Bill, thank you for being here.
You bet.
It's good to see you.
I wish I had time to greet everybody when they come off the trail, but we've got a lot to do at Missouri State Parks. But it's great to have you here.
Well, and when you're on the Katy Trail, I think you do feel that sense of, one, history and heritage, but also just the connections across Missouri. Bill, as a director, could you just kind of put not just the Katy Trail, but all of the assets that are Missouri State Parks kind of in context for our viewers?
Sure. We have 85 state parks and historic sites that are spread pretty well around the state. Virtually every Missourian is within at least an hour, no more than an hour, of one of our great state parks or historic sites. We manage both recreational facilities and places where you can learn about history and culture. And the Katy Trail is one of those places that's kind of unique because you can do both.
Right. And when you think about a state park, you think about going to a destination. But for Missouri to span the state, literally 239 miles, how many states have a state park that would fall into the same kind of category of a Katy Trail? Really none.
South Dakota has a significant rail to trail, but it's nowhere near the 239 miles that we have here in Missouri. It's our longest and skinniest state park, but it's a unique place, and it's visited from people all over the world.
Gives a great sense of destination. Coming down the trail today, we met two couples. They were from Memphis, Tennessee, picked a very warm time to ride the trail, but a place of destination for Missouri. How did it get started?
Well, it started with a vision by a man named Ted Jones, whose father was the founder of the Edward Jones Investment Company. And Ted had a vision when the railroad went away. He didn't see, abandoned railroad tracks. Instead, he had this vision of a trail that would connect communities and connect people. And he took it upon himself, though he was a busy and successful businessman, made many trips to Jefferson City, to the Capitol, and was a great advocate and a champion for getting this done. And we have all Missourians, all trail users, a great debt to Ted and Pat Jones for not only for the vision, but for the legwork that made it happen and for the financial funding that helped us build the Katy Trail.
Certainly connectivity for communities, and in our area of central Missouri, we can start in Clinton and go through Sedalia, Pilot Grove. We're here in Boonville. A lot of history along the trail, and a lot of efforts by the state to kind of document that history for riders. It must take a lot of effort not only to design what is the experience, but then maintain it.
It does. The Katy Trail is 239 miles essentially of a gravel road that has about every 10 or 12 miles a rest stop with a bathroom. Most of them have water, parking lot. So there's a lot of different things that go into managing the Katy Trail to make sure that the number one thing is that we have a good riding surface. We've listened to our users. We did a survey last year, and that's number one, and that's number one every year, is to make sure that the surface is smooth. People spend a lot of money on their bikes, and they want to have a good, smooth surface to ride on. So we have a great crew from literally coast to coast. We call it coast to coast on the Katy Trail, that take care of that riding surface and then make sure that the other things that you need along the Katy Trail are there.
The Katy Trail has a lot of personalities. You're in the prairie to the southern end. You get into the river bottoms. 4 seasons. Is there some difficulties? I know there's some restrictions on some of the facilities during the winter, but what about the seasons of the trail?
There's something interesting to see, every 365 days a year on the trail. In October, we have a fall tram tour in the Rocheport section where we give people who can't, like you and I, who can't get out and ride, but they might want to enjoy the trail as well, senior citizens, people with disabilities. We have an opportunity for them to get out and enjoy it. So you can enjoy, as you said, the prairies or the hills, the river bluffs, but the biggest challenges are, in addition to being able to get out there and do it, are heat, lack of water, and sometimes too much water. We have folks every year that have trouble because on a day like today, they may go out there and not be prepared for it. So we always encourage people to be aware of the conditions they're going to expect and plan accordingly, and to make sure they have plenty of water. That's probably the biggest thing that we see is people run out of water. So make sure they've got plenty of water. And then in terms of maintaining the trail, we've got to keep those facilities there so when somebody pulls into a trailhead that's marked that has water, that there's water there. Because people plan and they expect those amenities to be there. So we have to make sure if we have a water problem, we got to get it fixed right away. But the biggest challenge in maintaining the trail is flooding. A long distance of the trail is right on the Missouri River. So when the Missouri River comes up, like it did last year, we're going to have to close the trail for a period of time, and then we don't know what maintenance is involved until the water recedes. So that's our biggest challenge, is repairing the trail after flooding. So
there's a lot of issues of safety. Of course, bike safety would suggest to wear a helmet. One of the great things on the Katy is not having to worry as much about automobiles, but there are road crossings, times that you kind of have to need to stop and take a look. Are there other recommendations? I think that preparation that you're saying about water, especially this summer.
That's important, but the rider etiquette, letting people know you're back, you're passing on the left, always looking out at those road crossings, those are all important things. Another important thing for people to remember is that about 75% of our users, about 85% of our users are on bikes. We have some people on foot. So you got people going at different speeds, going 2 directions. And then on about 50 miles of the trail, we have horses. So you always got to give right away to the horse. Horses are trained animals and riders know how to handle them, but sometimes they can be confused by a bicycle slipping up on them from behind or speeding at them from the front. So yield to the horses.
Advice is to get off your bicycle, yield to the horse.
That's good advice, and wear a helmet. Always wear a helmet.
Being director, you probably hear a lot of the stories of the Katy, but people riding all the way, great connectivity with Amtrak, people who do it every day for fitness, those that have walked the trail. Are there any circumstances of kind of traversing the Katy that have come to mind that are unique? You bet. Last year I met a guy who was pedaling all the way from Alaska. He was pedaling all the way to Washington, D.C., and when he got to Missouri, he jumped on the Katy Trail, and met him in Jefferson City last year, and that's just one example. But we have a lot of folks that are doing a coast-to-coast ride, and when they get to Missouri, instead of traversing through the lower Ozarks, they opt for the Katy Trail. Because for some of the same reasons we've already talked about, is that you have a few road crossings, but in general, you can pedal. And a national reputation for rail trails, really listed as one of the nation's finest, if not the best in the country.
The Katy Trail was the first rail-to-trail put into the National Rails to Trail Hall of Fame. So it is respected across the world. We just completed our 12th annual Katy Trail ride, where we support a ride from St. Charles this year to Clinton. Next year we'll go from Clinton to St. Charles, always the week following Father's Day. Registration's on March 1, and if you want to do it, Chuck, you got to get in quick, because we fill out about 330 riders every year and take them on that trip where we support it. But it's a great experience to do that. You'll meet people this year from 28 different states and from Canada.
Wow.
So it's a great experience, and there are people coming from all over the world to ride the Katy Trail.
And connectivity with Amtrak, they've got a nice system set up. If you're going one way, you can ride back. Bill, let me ask you, do you ride? And what are some of your experiences on the Katy? And what would you tell our viewers about getting out there and taking advantage of this as an asset?
I do ride, but not enough. We're really busy this time of year. I live a very short distance from the trail. I can pedal through my neighbor's farm and be on the trail in a matter of minutes. But my wife and I have been riding on the Katy Trail since it opened. I can remember when the North Jefferson City Trailhead opened and we started riding, and we really enjoy that stretch up through Rocheport. There's great riding anywhere you go on the trail, because the Katy Trail offers a real triple bottom line. You get outdoors, and you get all the benefits that come from spending time outside. You're active. You're either hiking or pedaling, so you're leading a healthy lifestyle. We need to be more active as a society and a population. And then third, as you mentioned, you're spending time out in the rural and small town Missouri, and you're learning about our culture and our history, and that has great benefit as well.
You've been an advocate for the environment. Now you're in a very vibrant position of being director of our state parks. What would you tell Missourians to say, this is what you could do to help us preserve, protect, and maybe look to the future of Missouri state parks?
Well, the first thing is just get out there and enjoy them. You know, we are blessed to have taxpayer support for our state park system through the 1/2 of a cent state park and soil sales tax. That's unique among states, and we treasure that support, and we do everything we can to make sure people enjoy the outdoors and their culture and history.
And Bill, we've just got to thank you for your leadership and certainly your stewardship for one of the state's great assets, and that's the Katy Trail. So again, thanks for the hospitality and all that you do for Missourians and people who come to Missouri to enjoy such a great time on the Katy Trail.
Well, you're welcome. We've got a great team, and we're just glad to have you here at the Katy Trail at Boonville.
Thanks. Hello, Larry. We're here at our last stop on the Katy Trail with Larry Horning, owner of the Trailside Cafe. And Larry, this is one of the great destinations on the Katy Trail. And being new to Missouri, very early on people said, come to Rocheport because it is a special place. What makes Rocheport special?
It's got an unbelievable history for a little community. We had the National Whig Convention in 1840. Abraham Lincoln was here. There's some think he might have met Mary Todd here, who was visiting her cousin in Columbia at the time. That's not verified, but I think it's probably true. Of course, Lewis and Clark stopped here. But the thing that it struggled when the railroad went in, and a lot of the people here worked at the Katy Roundhouse in New Franklin, which is a major employer in the area. And that sort of shut down the town, went from about 500 people to 200 people. But then the Katy Trail came through, State Park, and it's kind of rejuvenated the little town, and now it's a really tourist destination with restaurants and B&Bs, and we get thousands of people coming through here every year on the Katy Trail.
Great culture just in and around the community of Rocheport, and certainly the Katy Trail and the bluffs and the river. How did you end up here at the Trailside Cafe? How did you find Rocheport to be home?
I used to buzz by on I-70 all the time, but my great-great-grandfather spent a night here in 1839 when he was taking a steamboat to Nebraska. And so I thought, man, I got to go check that place out. And I finally came down here for a charity bike ride 10 years ago. And I'd had a really major bike wreck in Kansas City and couldn't ride in it, but I sat here for 3 hours. My friend went to Hartsburg and back, and those 3 hours I fell in love with the place. It was for sale, and I came back the next weekend and bought it, and it's just been the most delightful 9 or 10 years of my life.
Larry, with this being one of the most popular destinations on the trail, you've seen all kinds of riders and all kinds of purposes. Can you just say what the kind of typical Katy Trail rider is that stops at the trailside?
There's definitely not a typical rider at all. They come in all shapes and sizes. Some of them I can't believe can ride a bike at all. We get a lot of Boy Scout troops. I get a lot of Mennonite and Amish families because they all bike. We get a lot of church youth groups, and then we get people from the international people. What amazes me that they find their way here. The trail is really well known in biking circles in the world, and it draws every sort of person in the world.
And that makes Rocheport really well known throughout the world. Could you take a guess at how many through riders you really have versus those that are doing the kind of day rides and just the fun day with the family?
Oh my, during the week I'd say it's probably 30 to 40%.
Are through riders?
Through riders riding the whole trail, or riding cross country, or riding the Oregon Trail, like the guy that just left from St. Charles to Astoria, Oregon.
Wow.
And I mean, we had an 18-year-old boy from Virginia. It just 2 weeks after graduating from high school, the night before, he decided he was riding to Oregon, and he's completely by himself, no support team or anything. And
just sagged and supported.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I mean, it's like there's nothing typical about the people that bike.
Now it must be tough coming to work every day and serving people who are riding, but do you get to, as you look out just literally feet from the trail, do you get to enjoy it as well?
Not that much while I'm during this regular season. I close down for 4 months in the winter, and then I can get out and ride or walk my dog on the trail. But generally I put in about 80 to 90 hours a week here, and I don't have much time for enjoying the trail.
Do you have a favorite section that you love to be on?
Oh, definitely. It's the next 5 or 6 miles going between here and downstream. You've got the river bluffs, the river on one side and the bluffs on the other side. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's shady. There's so much wildlife.
History.
Yeah, a lot of history. There's the Indian paintings on the wall, what little of it's left, and it's just unbelievable.
As you look to kind of the business of the Katy Trail, would places like Rocheport have this type of identity if it were not for a great state asset like the trail?
I mean, some of the antique shops could probably still be here and so on as a remote thing, but I'd say it's probably the big. I mean, we have a restaurant too that are really outstanding. They don't have to have the trail, but having the trail here helps all of us. Even the people that have the winery up here, which don't need the trail at all, are biggest supporters of the trail.
You know, we have an opportunity to look to the future of Central Missouri, and of course one of the things about assets like the Katy Trail is sometimes they're less well known at home than they are, as you said, across the world. Is there one thing that you would like to tell Missourians about Rocheport and about the Trailside and the Katy Trail that would help them know how to enjoy the trail better?
Just come and visit us. I'm on a board of directors of a thing that has a charity bike ride here the first Saturday of every May, and 90% of our people come from Columbia and they've never been to Rocheport before, 15 miles away. And it's like, that's true all over central Missouri. All these little towns have so much history and so much to show people to just get out and look.
You said you came here from Kansas City. There is some future development for the trail that would include the Rock Island line.
Right, they're trying to extend it from Windsor into Pleasant Hill and eventually into Lee Summit, and that will just do phenomenal stuff, I think, for the western section of the trail.
Larry, there's communities across central Missouri that have hospitality and service to those that use the Katy Trail, and certainly the Trailside Cafe is one of those best known. We just want to appreciate what you do for those that take advantage of the Katy Trail, and also your encouragement for others just to get out and ride your bike or walk the trail and come to Rocheport. Thank you for what you mean to the Katy and to central Missouri. We just appreciate what you do here.
I appreciate what they all mean to me too. So
It's those relationships that you said are most important. So thank you, and it's great being with you.
Okay.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us as we explored the Missouri-Katy Trail for just over 50 miles through central Missouri. We hope this encourages you to get out on the trail. We also want to thank our guests, Elaine Horn, Bill Bryan, and Larry Horning, for joining us out on the trail and sharing their impressions on the significance and value of the Katy Trail and their thoughts on its future. Once again, thanks for watching. Good night from the University of Central Missouri and KMOS-TV.